We all want change. We crave it. We imagine it. But most of us never really commit to it. Not because we're lazy, not because we're weak, but because we haven't connected to something deeper than surface level motivation. 6 months of hard work sounds noble, but unless you're anchored to a reason that stirs your soul, you'll fall back into old patterns the moment discomfort knocks on the door. Your why is the engine. It's what pulls you out of bed when your body wants to rest. It's what makes you choose preparation over procrastination, progress over perfection. Without it, you're running on fumes, relying on willpower alone, and willpower runs out. Purpose doesn't. Most people set goals like, I want to lose weight, or I want to make more money. But these are outcomes, not reasons. The deeper truth is often hidden beneath that. Maybe it's not about weight. It's about wanting to feel seen, wanted, respected. Maybe it's not about money. It's about finally feeling safe, secure, in control of a life that once felt chaotic. When you find that emotional root, you find fuel that doesn't fade. Ask yourself this: what pain are you tired of carrying? What emotion do you want to stop pretending doesn't exist? Often the most powerful why comes from a place of personal honesty. Brutal, tender, transformative honesty. The kind that makes you whisper to yourself, I don't want to feel like this anymore. And that's when things begin to shift. When your why becomes personal, everything changes. It's no longer about chasing an image, it's about rewriting a story. You begin to realize that hard work isn't something you have to do. It's something you get to do. Because now you're working toward healing, not just hustling. Clarity comes when you slow down and listen. Not to the world, but to yourself. To that quiet voice that knows what you've been avoiding. You'll notice it never yells. It doesn't threaten. It simply says, you were meant for more. But you only hear it when you pause long enough to care. A deep why is not always glamorous. Sometimes it's born from heartbreak, rejection, or fear. But that's what gives it power. When you dig deep enough to say, this stops with me, or I refuse to pass this pain forward, your 6 months take on a different shape. They become a mission, not a resolution. So when people ask what you're working toward, you may not always have the words. And that's okay. Because the most powerful why isn't something you say out loud. It's something you carry with you silently in every action you take. Time is strange. 6 months can feel like a blink or a burden, depending on how you live it. When we're scrolling, drifting, or waiting for the right moment, time disappears. But when we focus, when we work with intention, 6 months stretches wide and full. It's not the amount of time we have, it's how awake we are inside of it. We convince ourselves we're too busy, that 6 months won't make a dent. And yet, we'll spend that same amount of time complaining, comparing, hesitating, or endlessly planning without acting. The truth is, we don't lack time. We lack urgency wrapped in clarity. We wait for motivation to appear like a guest we never invited. Ask someone about their goals, and they'll say things like, someday, or when things calm down. But someday isn't a day on the calendar. Things rarely calm down. There's no perfect window. There's only now and what you choose to do with it. Time is an illusion that favors the one who acts. We are taught to measure time in days, months, and years. But progress isn't made in those terms. It's made in moments of decision, one early morning workout, one email sent, one uncomfortable truth faced. Stack those for 180 days and what you have is not just a new habit, it's a new identity. We're often too obsessed with what can happen in a week. We want instant feedback, quick results, visible proof. But real transformation is rarely visible in the beginning. It happens below the surface, quietly. And then, almost suddenly, it reveals itself in how you walk, speak, and live. We forget that time is passive unless you activate it. 6 months on autopilot and 6 months on purpose are not the same 6 months. One drains you, the other remakes you. When you realize that, you stop asking, how long will it take? And start asking, how far can I go if I don't stop? Most people quit not because it's hard, but because they don't respect the timeline. We give up when results lag, not realizing they're still forming. 6 months of effort isn't about creating a perfect life. It's about building momentum that compounds long after the 6 months are done. And in that space between who you were and who you're becoming, time becomes your partner, not your enemy. You stop chasing shortcuts. You stop bargaining with effort. You start showing up, not because you have time, but because you finally see what time can become when it's filled with purpose. Most people think of discipline as restriction, as punishment, as something cold, rigid, and joyless. But that's because they've misunderstood it. Real discipline isn't about denying yourself. It's about choosing yourself. It's the quiet decision to show up for your future, even when your present self wants to quit. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you reinforce the belief that you are someone worth trusting. That matters, because most of the pain people carry isn't from what others did to them. It's from what they keep doing to themselves, skipping commitments, breaking routines, lowering standards. Over time, that erosion adds up. It starts to shape identity. When you say you're going to wake up early and you don't, your brain learns not to believe you. When you say you'll start the project, change your habits, or fix your finances, and nothing changes yourself, trust crumbles. Discipline is how you rebuild that trust. It's not glamorous. No one applauds it. But it's sacred because it's personal. We're conditioned to keep our word to others out of politeness, fear, or duty. But what about keeping our word to ourselves? That's where true character is built. When you begin to treat your own goals with the same urgency and respect you give to someone else's deadline, you begin to step into self-leadership. Discipline doesn't mean you're always motivated. It just means your values are stronger than your moods. It means there's a part of you calm, clear, committed, that's louder than the voice that says, just skip today. Discipline doesn't scream. It whispers, do it anyway, and then does. Some people think freedom comes from doing whatever you want whenever you want. But that's not freedom, that's impulse. Real freedom comes from structure, from knowing you're not a slave to urges or moods. Discipline puts your life on a foundation, not a guessing game. It's not about control, it's about care. When you respect yourself, you treat your time differently. You feed your body differently. You let go of things that lower your energy or waste your potential. Discipline becomes less about rules and more about alignment. You don't follow it because you have to. You follow it because it reflects who you are choosing to become. And slowly, the hard things begin to feel less hard, not because they've changed, but because you have. Because you've trained your nervous system to hold discomfort without panic. Because you've shown yourself that you are not fragile. That's what discipline is. It's how you say every day, I am someone worth fighting for. We want results fast. That's the world we live in. Instant downloads, same-day shipping, quick fixes. But life doesn't transform at the speed of a click. It changes through the quiet, often unnoticed repetition of small choices made over and over again. That's the compound effect. And it never works overnight, but it always works over time. One workout won't change your body. One healthy meal won't reset your health. One moment of courage won't rewrite your story. But do that thing again tomorrow and the next day, and what once seemed impossible becomes inevitable. Consistency turns effort into identity, and identity into lasting change. The challenge is that consistency is invisible at first. You don't get applause for showing up. You don't get validation for keeping your head down and doing the work. In fact, it often feels like no one notices. But that's the point. It's not about being seen. It's about becoming someone worth seeing. When you're consistent, you stop chasing motivation and start building systems. You stop relying on mood and start relying on momentum. And momentum, once built, has a power of its own. It's the difference between a fresh start and a permanent shift. It's what separates wishful thinking from lived reality. People often overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what they can build in 6 months. That's because we're wired for dopamine, not discipline. But the compound effect doesn't care about dopamine. It rewards discipline, slowly, quietly, and then all at once. It's easy to get excited at the beginning. Day 1 always feels heroic. But day 23, day 67, day 142, those are the days that matter most. That's when you face resistance, doubt, boredom. And that's when the compound effect is watching, waiting to see if you'll keep your word when no one's cheering. Success doesn't come from doing extraordinary things once. It comes from doing ordinary things consistently, drinking water, moving your body, reading 10 pages, choosing focus over distraction. You may not see a difference today, but your future self will thank you for the seeds you planted. And what's powerful is that the results sneak up on you. One day you'll look in the mirror, or check your bank account, or walk into a room and realize you're not the same. Not because of one big moment, but because of hundreds of small ones that you never skipped. Even when no one noticed, there's so much noise. Opinions disguised as truth. Advice given without understanding. Expectations layered on top of who you are until you can barely hear yourself think. And the danger isn't just distraction, it's disconnection. You become a version of yourself that pleases everyone but fulfills no one, especially not you. Most people aren't tired because they're overworked. They're tired because they're overwhelmed, constantly pulled in directions that don't align with their values. They chase validation instead of vision. And in all the chasing, they forget the sound of their own voice, the one that knows what matters and what doesn't. You can't create real change if you're living in reaction mode. If every decision is shaped by what others might say or think, your life becomes a performance, not a pursuit. You weren't meant to perform. You were meant to build, to grow, to choose. And that requires space, mental, emotional, spiritual space. To come back to yourself, silencing the world doesn't mean you ignore people. It means you filter the noise. You get honest about who's allowed to influence you. You step back from constant comparison, scrolling, constant stimulation. And in that pause, you begin to hear something softer, quieter, and far more honest. That voice inside you. It's not loud. It doesn't shout. It doesn't beg for attention like the world does. It speaks through tension, through gut instincts, through that moment of stillness when you know you've been lying to yourself. Listening to it doesn't always feel good, but it always feels right. There's a difference between alone and being in solitude. Solitude is where alignment happens, where ideas form, clarity surfaces, and decisions start making sense. When you give yourself space to listen, truly listen, you begin to notice what you've been avoiding and why it matters now more than ever. So many people are running toward goals they didn't choose, chasing dreams that aren't theirs. They don't know what they want because they've never stopped long enough to ask. Listening to yourself isn't selfish. It's how you remember what matters before the world convinces you to forget. There's a version of you underneath the noise, quieter, wiser, more certain. That version doesn't need permission. It doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be heard. And the only way to hear it is to first silence everything else that isn't you. We're taught to see sacrifice as loss, something painful, something we give up and never get back. But what if that definition is wrong? What if sacrifice isn't about losing, but about choosing? Choosing something better, something deeper, something more aligned with who you're becoming. Most people resist sacrifice because they see it as deprivation. They say, I don't want to give up my weekends, or I can't sacrifice my comfort. But comfort isn't always your friend. In fact, the longer you cling to it, the more it costs you. Opportunity, energy, time you'll never reclaim. Sacrifice isn't taking something away from you. It's giving something back to you that truly matters. When you choose to work on yourself instead of binging another show, that's not loss. That's investment. When you choose to say no to short-term pleasure so you can say yes to long-term peace, that's not punishment, that's alignment. Sacrifice isn't a burden when you understand what you're trading for. The truth is, you're already sacrificing something. Every day, every time you hit snooze, delay action, or stay silent when your voice matters, you're sacrificing potential. Every time you choose comfort over courage, you're making a trade. The real question is, are you sacrificing for growth, or are you sacrificing growth? Sacrifice becomes powerful the moment you tie it to vision. It stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like clarity. You begin to see it as a bridge, not a block. It's the space between where you are and where you want to be, and the willingness to let go of what no longer fits in order to build what does. People will call you extreme for choosing discipline. They'll say you've changed for leaving old habits, old circles, old patterns behind. But what they don't see is that you're not just giving things up. You're stepping into something more. You're trading survival for purpose, numbness for clarity. And yes, there will be moments of lone lines, doubt, fatigue. Growth always carries a cost, but sacrifice rooted in purpose never leaves you empty. It carves out space for new strength, new perspective, new power to emerge. The version of you're fighting for can't be built on convenience. It requires commitment. So the next time you feel the weight of sacrifice, remember, it's not about what you're losing. It's about what you're finally making room for. Sacrifice is not the end of comfort. It's the beginning of freedom from what's been holding you back, and most people wait to feel ready. They wait until they believe they're disciplined, confident, or qualified before they take the first step. But that's not how change works. You don't become a new version of yourself by thinking about it. You become it by behaving differently first. Identity isn't something you find. It's something you build through action. Every time you do something new, you cast a vote for who you are becoming. You wake up early. That's not just a productive morning. It's a signal that you are someone who values structure. You say no to an old habit. That's not just self-control. It's evidence that you are not the person you used to be. The action may feel small, but its impact is foundational. Belief comes later. First comes discomfort, awkward reps, doubt. You don't have to fully believe in yourself to act. You just have to act like someone who does. Courage isn't about confidence. It's about doing what's hard before the voice in your head says you're ready. That's how identity starts to shift. Change often feels fake in the beginning. You go to the gym but still feel like a quitter. You write the first page but don't yet feel like a writer. That's normal. We expect identity to lead the way, but it's action that creates the path. Eventually your brain catches up. It starts to say, this is who we are now. The problem is we've been conditioned to wait. For clarity, for motivation, for the perfect conditions. But action doesn't need permission. It just needs intention. Even small moves, consistent, deliberate ones, carry weight. They begin to rewire how you see yourself, not because someone else told you who you are, but because you've proven it to yourself. There's no point in affirming who you want to be if your daily actions say otherwise. You don't have to tell yourself you're disciplined. Go act disciplined. You don't have to convince yourself you're confident. Go do the thing that scares you. Words can inspire you for a moment. Behavior transforms you for a lifetime. Every new identity requires a series of repeated choices. It's not a one-time leap. It's a quiet commitment to doing the hard thing until it comes normal, until discomfort becomes familiar, until the old version of you no longer fits, not because you fought it, but because you outgrew it. And when you look back, you won't remember you decided to change. You'll remember the days you kept showing up when it felt like nothing was working. That's where identity is formed. In the daily evidence, in the way you move, speak, choose. Not because someone gave you a new label, but because your actions left no other option. Talk is easy. It fills space. It makes plans sound promising and dreams feel real before any work has been done. But change isn't measured by how well you can explain your goals. It's measured by what your life starts to reflect without you needing to say a word. The loudest people in the room often have the least to show. The most grounded ones are busy becoming. When you stop announcing and start aligning, something shifts. You begin to realize that your value isn't in how well you pitch your potential. It's in how consistently you live it. You don't need to convince people who you are becoming. Let them notice. Let your habits, your discipline, your focus do the speaking for you. We often talk about what we're going to do because it gives us a quick hit of pride. It makes us feel like we're already halfway there. But that pride is short-lived. It fades the moment you realize nothing has actually changed. Action is slower, quieter, but it builds something talk never will: credibility with yourself. There's a difference between wanting transformation and embodying it. Wanting doesn't require action. Embodying demands repetition. When you choose to become proof, you let go of the need to impress. You're no longer seeking approval. You're too busy building results. Not for applause, but for alignment. People will watch you. They may not say anything, but they'll notice when you stop explaining and start living differently. Your consistency will confuse them. Your silence will speak louder than your explanations ever did. You'll become the person who once only existed in your words. And that transition is powerful. Being proof means you don't argue with doubt. You outlast it. You don't correct people's assumptions. You quietly prove them wrong. Not out of spite, but because the outcome matters more than the recognition. Your life becomes a quiet rebellion against mediocrity. A visible reminder that real work pays off. It takes patience. Because proof doesn't happen in a week. It's built through early mornings no one sees, through decisions no one celebrates. But over time, you'll stop needing to be understood, validated, or praised. You'll feel something stronger than praise: integrity. The alignment between what you say and what you do. Eventually, people will ask what changed, and you won't need a long explanation. You'll just smile. Because the answer isn't in the story you tell. It's in the life you built from the inside out. You stopped talking and became the evidence.